Funding for this program is provided by the Bernard and Irene Schwartz Foundation, the Henry M. Jackson Foundation, the Lined and Harry Bradley Foundation, and by Marilyn Ware.
My name is Ben Wattenberg. I've hosted a program on PBS for many years called Think Tank. I graduated from a small college in upstate New York and grew up in an all-Jewish neighborhood in the Bronx. I never dreamed that I would be a speechwriter for an American president, help run a presidential campaign, or be called any kind of a conservative. If you don't already know, I'm what they call a neoconservative, and I am annoyed that neocon has taken on such a negative connotation in recent years. I'd like to share my story with you and show you just what neocon means to me. This program is based on my new book, Fighting Words, a tale of how liberals created neoconservatism. Words have power. I grew up in New York City, the Bronx to be exact. These neighborhoods were a center of Yiddish culture, some Zionist, socialist thought with a particular emphasis on the union movement, and some out-and-out communism. These were a collection of small towns, not terribly different from the rest of America. This is PS 95, Public School 95. Everybody in the neighborhood went to the public school. We said the Pledge of Allegiance before it said under God, by the way. We learned all about American history. We learned a little European history. We learned how to speak English. The teachers were wonderful and dedicated, and everybody knew everybody. So many of the kids who grew up in those Shalom Aleichem houses and went to PS 95 and lived in the amalgamated housing and then went on to DeWitt Clinton High School, became famous scientists, Nobel Prize winners, famous engineers, famous politicians, famous actors. Burt Lancaster went to DeWitt Clinton High School. Patty Chayefsky, the terrific television playwright, came from this neighborhood. It was all public. It was taxpayer funded. People here worked hard, they paid their taxes, they believed in government, and government at that time was a good bargain. Like me, Joshua Moravchik grew up in the boroughs of New York. As a young man, he was an active democratic socialist. Now he's a scholar at the American Enterprise Institute.
In this community of sort of the immigrant Jews, there was this portion of it that was highly politicized. Now, not all of it, and some of it continued to be religious and maybe made a more conventional integration into the American economy, went into business and became doctors and lawyers, but there was this highly politicized segment.
This is my sister, Rebecca Shull. She's a playwright and an actress, and she starred for 8 years in the sitcom Wings. She played Faye, the sort of ditzy stewardess. And this is where we grew up. This is called the Shalom Aleichem houses, a center of Yiddish culture globally, all Jewish. The idea that there would be a Christmas tree here is unbelievable.
Our parents had very good friends who in fact, the father grew up with my mother in Palestine. So they were very close. Two families were very close. The kids all played together. That family, not the father, but the mother, was an ardent communist.
And supported Stalin.
And supported Stalin, but when it came to the point of the Hitler-Stalin Pact, I think. That's when Mother stopped talking to them.
This monstrous brutality is but the latest act in Colonel Gaddafi's reign of terror.
This will not stand, this aggression against the right.
Terrorism is one of the greatest dangers we face in this new global era.
In time, it became only a number. A crime so enormous, a plot so evil, that the words never came to describe it. 9/11. On a beautiful September morning, nearly 3,000 people were murdered in Lower Manhattan. It was the spectacular escalation of a war waged against the United States for more than 20 years.
Without securing our people, we have nothing. We have no freedoms, we have no democracies, we have nothing. Ask the families from those that died on September the 11th. If they had had the proper security and we had taken more military action earlier on, that September 11th attack may not have occurred.
Bernard Kerik is the former commissioner of the New York City Police. He lost 23 of his officers on September 11th.
I was standing beneath Tower 1 when Tower 2 exploded over top of us when United Flight 175 crashed through the tower, watching the people jump from the buildings. Going back to police headquarters that night to talk to the family members of the missing. We lost 23 police officers, 22 men and 1 woman. I had to go back and talk to their families.
9/11 was the vision of a murderous Saudi millionaire and his gang of religious warriors. America, Osama bin Laden told his recruits, is a paper tiger. It is rich and comfortable. Hit it hard, said bin Laden, and America won't find the strength or will to fight back.
And now's an opportunity to do generations a favor by coming together and whipping terrorism, hunting it down, finding it, and holding them accountable.
We're here today, first and foremost, not as Republicans or as Democrats, not as South Dakotans or people from Mississippi, but we're all New Yorkers today.
In the days following September 11th, the civilized world struggled to come to terms with the magnitude of the crime. From the bitter left, filmmaker Michael Moore lashed out at the president. If someone did this to get back at Bush, then they did so by killing thousands of people who did not vote for him. But there was another left that emerged from that September day.
I think that what I'll call for now Western society is rife with denial about what's meant by the struggle against bin Ladenism. Not just bin Laden, but jihadism, as I'll call it.
Christopher Hitchens is the author of A Long Short War, The Postponed Liberation of Iraq.
Their religious mania, their hatred for non-Orthodox Muslims, such as the Shia, their hatred for the Hindus, their utter loathing of the Jews and of all Christians, and of course of all secularists and atheists like myself, it has to be read to be believed. You have to look at these sermons and read this stuff and go to their websites, and people don't.
Before September 11th, 2001, I think we gave the Islamic radicals the great opportunity to say the great United States, the great superpower, really were a paper tiger.
Retired General Paul Vallely is the co-author of Endgame, Blueprint for Victory for Winning the War on Terror.
On September the 11th, 2001, 3,000 people within a very short period of time, almost within an hour, we lost. So the question is, do we stand by, knowing full well that these Islamic radicals want to detonate simultaneous nuclear explosions in the United States or chemical biological attacks?
The American political right was torn as well by the events of 9/11. Victor Davis Hanson writes for the Conservative National Review.
9/11 was just a crystallization of a much larger problem that can only be taken care of in one way. You had to defeat and humiliate the warriors of this movement, and then you had to remove the conditions which fed those warriors.
George Bush's fate was decided. A man who had come to office rejecting the idea of nation building, whose priority was domestic affairs, would instead become a war president.
I can hear you! I can hear you, the rest of the world hears you, and the people who knock these buildings down will hear all of us soon.
After 20 years of looking the other way, the United States was going to take the fight to the terror masters, to the regimes that harbored terrorists, to the regimes that funded terrorists, to the regimes that celebrated terrorists.